Hello, algebra students. Welcome back. Flipgrid question of the day up there. Go do it. It's good fun. Today's YouTube lesson is right here if you're watching it. Now, pause the video and try this problem in your notes, please and thank you. Unpause it and do it with me. Okay. This is the same as what we did last lesson, so we are solving the equation by graphing. In order to do that, remember step 1 is to write it in standard form. We need it equal to 0. So if I add 10 to both sides, this gives me... That made it worse. Okay. X squared plus 7x plus 10 equals 0. Step 2 is to graph. Remember, we're not using this graph. Instead, we are using Desmos. So I'm going to switch on over to Desmos, and we're going to do y equals x squared plus 7x. Oh, excuse me. Plus 7x plus 10. And now, step 3. The solutions are wherever this graph crosses the x-axis. So we have -2 and -5. -2, -5. So step 3 is -2, -5. So x equals -2 or x equals -5. Remember, we have the optional step 4 of checking. I'm going to leave that as an exercise to you. Check it. Make sure that we were right. Pause the video and check it. Okay, but let's move on to what we have for today. Still in Chapter 9, moving on to the next portion of Chapter 9 about solving quadratic equations. So the same thing, we're going to be solving quadratic equations, but now we're going to be doing it by using square roots. Woohoo! Okay, so how can you determine the number of solutions of a quadratic equation of the form ax squared plus c equals 0? I know you might be thinking, what happened to the plus bx that we normally have in the middle? That you will learn about in advanced algebra. But for just algebra, we're going to take out the bx because it makes things a lot, and I mean a lot, easier. So, how can you determine the number of solutions of a quadratic equation? So we are going to use the radicals that we learned about in Chapter 6, and we are going to find solutions of quadratic equations using square roots. That's what we're going to do today. So, first things first. Write this down, please and thank you. If we have x squared equals a number in this case we're calling it d. So if x squared equals d, if d is positive, oh, that is weird how I spaced that. If d is positive, then 2 real solutions. If d is 0, then we have 1 real solution. And if d is negative, we have no real solutions. And that's because if d were a negative number, say we had x squared equals -5, what number, so x, that means x times x is equal to -5. What could x possibly be? What number multiplied by itself gives us -5? There is no real number that does that, because remember, even if I had negative, well here, let's use -4 as an example. -4. Goodness gracious, that's a 4. Okay. So even if I had -2 times -2, 2 negatives make a positive. So no matter what, this is not possible. This is not possible. A square, when I have x squared, this cannot cannot be negative. Otherwise, x squared, it can't equal a negative number, because two things multiplied by each other, no matter if they're negative or positive, always give you a positive number. Positive and a positive equal, and here I'll write that down. Positive times positive is a positive, and a negative times a negative is still a positive, so it's always positive. That is what makes it so that it cannot be negative. Yeah. Okay, so let's jump right into some examples, shall we? These are examples of solving quadratic equations using square roots. Get a different color in here. Alright, we're going to look at A first. 3x squared minus 27 using square roots. So, oh, you can't see that. Still can't see that. Let me move. There we go. Solve quadratic equations using square roots. There we go. Okay, so here's our function, or excuse me, our equation, and we are wanting to solve for x. We want to get x by itself. So in order to get x by itself, I need to get this 27 out of here. I'm going to add 27 to both sides, and it'll go away over here. And that leaves us with 3x squared equals 27. Now, remember, I'm still trying to get x by itself, so I need to divide by the 3 both sides. 27 divided by 3 is 9. And now, what number times itself gives me 9? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take the square root of both sides, just like we did back in chapter 6. These go away. Remember, the square root is the opposite. Square root is the opposite of x squared. These are opposites. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides, and now, we didn't talk about this in chapter 6. When you take the square root of 9, this could be -3 times -3 equals 9, or this could just be 3 times 3 equals 9. So the answer to this is positive or -3. And that's what this means right here. When we do this, what this means is positive, positive or negative. So this, what this means is it means x equals -3 or x equals positive. That's what this means when we write that. So you can write this, or you can just write it like this. I don't mind. I do not mind. I think that this way is a little bit faster. So this way, the x plus or minus 3 is a little bit faster. So I like that one. Yes. So, remember, -3 times -3 is 9. Positive 3 times positive 3 is also 9. So we use this, which is positive or negative. Okay, let's move on to B. I'm gonna get this out of here. Don't need it anymore. There we go. Switch to a different color, and let's move on to question B. Solve using square roots. Okay, so again, remember, we want to get x by itself. So I'm going to be adding 10 to both sides of the equation. That will give me x squared equals -10 plus 10 is 0. And now remember, to get the x by itself, the opposite of squaring something is to take the square root of it. So we're going to take the square root of both sides. And now, the square root of 0, only thing that multiplied by itself gives you 0 is 0. 0 is not positive or negative, so we don't have to worry. We do not have to worry about the plus or minus in this case. And we just have x equals 0. One solution. Here we had, here we had 2 solutions. Here we have 1 solution. And that's okay. Remember, we can have 2, 1, or no solutions. Okay, let's move on to C. I'm going to move it so y'all can see it. There we go. We're going to move on to question C and a different color. So now we're solving this equation using square roots. Remember, I need to get x by itself. So first thing, I'm going to subtract 11 from both sides. Bring down the negative 5x squared. 16 minus 11 is 5. And now I'm going to divide by the negative 5 up here. I'm going to do that on both sides. So those cancel out. And now we're left with x squared equals 5 divided by negative 5. This is negative 1. And now, if I take the square root of both sides, that'll cancel out. And the square root of negative 1 is... oh, not possible. Not possible, because remember, if I take a number times itself, it has to be positive. It has to be positive. It cannot be negative. So taking the square root of a negative number is not possible in the real world. If you want to go into the complex world, then we can talk. But in the real mathematical world, this is not possible. So what we say is we say no real, remember, because we're in the real world, no real solution. Come on, put the S there. There we go. We say no real solution. No real solutions. There are complex solutions, not real solutions. Okay, alrighty. So, there are your first 3 examples. We're gonna do one more, and I hope you see. Okay, we gotta set. There we go. Alright. So I hope you see this is two solutions, 1 solution, and no solutions. So you have seen examples of all 3 of them. The only time you have 1 solution is when we get it equal to 0. As long as that number is positive, we have 2 solutions. And if this number is negative, then we have no solution. Let's check and see if we were right. Plus or minus 3, x equals 3, x equals negative 3, x equals 0, and no real solutions. Boom. Boom. Okay. Alright. Last example for today. Ooh, this looks a little scary. There's parentheses in there. Oh no! Don't worry. It's okay. Deep breath. In and out. You're going to be just fine. Different color. Okay. Solve this. X minus 1 squared, all of that squared, equals 25. So what do you think we should do first? How do these parentheses change things? Do they change things? Should I just add 1 to both sides like normal? What do you think? Pause the video and think about it. What should you do? Unpause it, and I'll tell you. Can we just add 1 to both sides? No. 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 You cannot do that. Because this negative 1 right here is inside the parentheses. So that's why we cannot add 1, because the 1 is inside the parentheses. So, we need to deal with this square first. When the square is outside of the parentheses, remember this square is squaring this whole thing. So then we need to get rid of the square first. Take the square root of both sides first. So this goes away. Now, we have x minus 1 equals positive or negative 5, because remember the square root of 25 is positive or negative 5. Can be negative 2. So this is what we get for our next step. Now, wait a minute. X equal plus or minus. Wow. How are we even going to do this? When I add 1 to both sides, how do I put these together? That does not sound fun to me. So, what we're going to do is anytime you have this plus or negative right here, anytime you have that, what you're going to do is you're going to split it into 2 different equations. So we have x minus 1 equals -5, and x minus 1 equals +5. Whew! Now I know how to do that. I can solve that. That I know how to solve. Up there, plus or minus 5, don't know how to solve that. So when you see this, split it up into 2 different equations. And now we can do this. Add 1 to both sides, add 1 to both sides, x equals -4. Beautiful. Not too bad. Add 1 to both sides, rid of that, and x equals 6. Awesome. Not bad. Not bad at all. So now, because the 25 was positive, we definitely should have had 2 solutions, so there they are. 1 solution, 2 solution. X equals -4, or x equals 6. Ta-da! If you want to see more examples of these, you're like, wait a minute, 1 is not enough, please join office hours, and I'm happy to discuss with you. Let's make sure that we were right. X equals 1 plus or minus 5, x equals, yup. X equals 1 plus 5, x equals 1 minus 5, so 6 and -4. And look at that, they even use a graphing calculator to check the x-intercepts, just like we did in the last lesson. So yeah, we were right, and we can put a smiley face on this graph. Okay, there you have it. That is what I have for you today. Remember, if you have questions, ask. I don't know if you have questions unless you ask. That's one of the things that is awful about online learning, is I'm not there to see you struggling, so you have to ask. You have to ask so I can help you. Okay. Your homework looks like this. You have 6 questions like the first example and 6 questions like the second example. They should go pretty quick. Just like they did up here, they went pretty quick. There's not a lot of steps here. There's about like 3-4 steps. So they should go pretty quick. If you are working on them for a lot of time, join me in office hours, because there's probably something that you're struggling with that we need to fix. So yeah, 12 problems on your homework. And now, your lunch for today. This comes from Oprah Winfrey. If you look at what you have in life, you'll always have more. Now, what this means isn't that if you look at all of your stuffed animals, you'll suddenly get more of them. That's not what this means. It means that when you pay attention to, when you pay attention to what you have in life versus what you don't. If I looked at everything I don't have in life, I could be like, wow, I don't have wireless headphones. I don't have the latest iPhone. I don't have a sports car. I don't have a fancy house. Like, when you add up all of that, and when I think about that, wow, I don't have a lot. My goodness, I don't even own my own refrigerator. I borrow the apartment that I'm living in. Oh my goodness. When you focus on it like that, not fun, right? You're like, oh my gosh, what have I accomplished in life? I don't even have a refrigerator. Like, what? But if you focus on what you do have in life, hey, I have a good job. I enjoy what I do. I enjoy the place that I'm living in. I have a husband who loves me. Like, if I focus on all the things that I do have, when it says you'll always have more, what this means, maybe I don't actually have more, right? I don't have that fancy car just because I'm focusing on what I have. But my perspective changes, and I think that I have more. And I appreciate what I have so much that I'm not paying attention to what I don't have. I have a husband that loves me. I love my job. I like the place that I live in, so who cares if I'm renting and I don't own my own refrigerator? Probably a bad example for her. But when you focus on what you have, you don't think as much about what you don't have. So focus on what you do have. You don't have wireless headphones, maybe, but you do have a phone that works. So we can be thankful for that, you know? Yeah, so that is your lunch for today. Take it with you as you go throughout your day. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and thanks for watching. Bye!